Hey everybody, welcome to our 2021 Better Chances Symposium. I'm your new president, the old is new again, Rachel Odell. And I just want to remind you that, and make a few announcements after this. This was filmed back in February, so at the time Lorenzo was still serving as our president. So you'll see him in this video welcoming you to the symposium and also interviewing some of our featured speakers. The second thing, now I want to make 3 announcements. First of all, next Tuesday, April 20th, at the Justice Administration Center, the courthouse, in the auditorium, GGRA will be receiving the Second Chance Month proclamation from our county commissioners. So if you would like to show up and just be present for that, that'll be at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, April 20th. That's next Tuesday. Just mark your calendars. The second thing I want to announce is the following Tuesday, April 27th, we're having, and we just sent an email out about this yesterday or the day before, we are having a DA listening session with our brand new, newly elected District Attorney, Patsy Austin Gatson. So this is a time for everybody in our organization, in our community who works with the justice involved, to kind of make their requests known to her, make their vision known as far as what they would like to see happen in the criminal justice system in Gwinnett County as regards the people that we serve. So make sure that you sign up. The best way to do that, you can register on our website, GwinnettReentry.org/events. You can register for that event, but then also email us, info@GwinnettReentry.org. Only email us if you want to personally have time to speak. If you just want to show up and listen and be part of the whole thing, that's fine. You don't have to email us for that. Just register on the website. But we've already had one email come in, like immediately almost, when we made that announcement. So I have a feeling that the actual spots we have will fill up. We said in the email that we have time on the day of for you to request to speak in the chat box, but I have a feeling that it'll fill up via email. So just email us if you would like a chance to speak. And the last thing I want to remind you of is that on May 12th, which is a Wednesday, May 12th, we're having our next monthly meeting, and it's going to be a hybrid of in-person and Zoom. The in-person gathering will be held at Inspire Outreach, and it's going to be limited in attendance. So we're going to limit it to 25 in person so that we can socially distance, but we're going to have our Chick-fil-A sandwiches back. So we'll be sending out more information about that. And if you would like to be there in person, register. Some of you will prefer not to. You'll prefer to be on Zoom, or if it fills up, you're welcome to just join us on Zoom if you didn't have a chance to register for in-person gathering. And the way we'll do it is that the folks on Zoom will get a chance before the meeting and again for a little time after the meeting to do networking, like as a group, whereas the people there in person network together in person. So those are the things coming up for GGRA, and we're very excited about. And now, here's our symposium.
Well, I want to welcome everyone to the Greater Gwinnett Reentry Alliance 2021 Better Chances Symposium. My name is Scott Maudsley, and I've been a spiritual leader, a pastor, and an entrepreneur for over 26 years. I now have the opportunity right here in our community to be a part of a great nonprofit called Corners Outreach, working with the working poor families of our community to help in the areas of educational and economic development. I've also been blessed over the past year to be a part of the leadership team of a project called Gwinnett Cares, which is a project of the Gwinnett Coalition to help during the COVID-19 crisis. The reason why I'm so honored to be a part of this symposium today is because the work of the Greater Gwinnett Reentry Alliance is something that's very meaningful for me. Over the past 26 years, I've had the incredible opportunity to journey with several people coming out of incarceration as returning citizens. In fact, one of my closest friends many years ago made some choices that put him in prison for several years. And I remember as he was returning back into the community, having conversations with him about how difficult it was, how discouraging it could be, and frankly, how alone he often felt in the process. And I remember thinking back then, I can't imagine being alone, trying to figure out how to access the right resources, how to find the mentoring, how to find the tools to become an active participant in society again. And that's the reason why the Gwinnett Reentry Alliance exists. They want to make sure that no one is alone in the process. And so in the symposium today, you're going to hear from several great leaders who are doing very important work to help our re-entering citizens. Today, we're going to start by introducing you to the president of the GGRA, Lorenzo Lewis. Lorenzo is a servant of God, a faithful husband, a father, and a papa. Lorenzo is a certified and ordained Christian life coach that specializes in re-entry. He has a heart for those that are currently incarcerated and those that are reintegrating back into their communities. Lorenzo has faithfully served the GGRA this year despite some real setbacks due to the pandemic. With all the unforeseen challenges, he has remained steadfastly focused on the mission of the GGRA. Would you please join me in welcoming Lorenzo Lewis?
Thank you, Scott, for that wonderful introduction, and your check is in the mail. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. You know, we know last year was an incredibly challenging year for us all. And in 2019, none of us knew what we were going to face at the start of 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic totally took the wind out of our sails. And as many of you, we here at GGRA had to figure out how we would go forward as an alliance. As a matter of fact, the month I was elected president in April was our last in-person meeting to this day. We really had to come together as an executive committee and board to figure out our next steps. Now, together and thinking what we would do collectively, we decided to take the luncheon into the virtual space. And I must tell you, the experience has taught us several things about ourselves and us as an alliance. And I will say this, our partners and our members really rallied around us, and we have navigated through these waters together. Through learning creative ways to stay connected, we were able to bring very enlightening knowledge from providers, influencers, members, and law officials to share with those at the virtual luncheons via newly instituted platforms. Now, one such platform was our new segment, Conversation with the Candidates, during the 2020 Gwinnett County elections. Now, this allowed our Alliance community, through conversation-style questions, to hear the heart of the candidates running for the various offices without the banter usually displayed in debates. Now, some of our community were even able to voice questions for the candidates during the conversation. Another instituted segment was our networking breakout rooms, where we would randomly pair our attendees in several groups and place them into small meeting rooms in Zoom and pose pertinent questions relating to reentry. We would have them discuss for 5 to 10 minutes and then reconvene in the main room to talk about their thoughts. Through being creative, this fostered renewed interest in the collective focus of GGRA, which is to pool our knowledge and resources together for the forward movement of those returning and reintegrating back into society as well as our communities. Now, as we continue through 2021 with like-minded and like-hearted individuals, organizations, and communities such as yourself, we most certainly will continue to be a strong ally for those impacted by incarceration here in Gwinnett County and the surrounding areas. So as Scott mentioned, this afternoon, we have several awesome men and women speaking that are influencers in the space of reentry, mental health, and addiction. So lean in and enjoy the 2021 Better Chances Symposium. God bless. I'm here with Deborah Wingrove. Deborah is the Social Services Director for the Salvation Army in Gwinnett. How you doing today?
Hi, good to see you. Thank you for inviting us.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you here. And I have to tell you, the Salvation Army has a special place in my heart.
Well, bless you.
Yeah, so let us know a little bit about who you are, Deborah, and what you do at Salvation Army in Gwinnett.
Well, I'm a Christian social worker, and I practice the social work at the Salvation Army. I'm also a member of the congregation at the Salvation Army of Gwinnett County. As you may know, the Salvation Army has a long history of serving the least of these, It was founded by a minister in London, England, over 150 years ago, who was very concerned about those struggling with homelessness and impoverishment. And we've continued that mission today through the Salvation Army's work. So my ministry at the Salvation Army is to reach out to those who are struggling with homelessness and for those who are at risk of homelessness to prevent them from becoming homeless. We try to be a solution to homelessness in Gwinnett County, so that we're not just finding a temporary place for somebody to stay for a night or two, but providing them with the hospitality and the community of the Salvation Army so that they can reconnect with jobs and health care and everything they need to become stable and independent and stably housed again in Gwinnett County.
Wow, that's a wonderful backstory, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that was enlightened by hearing all that wonderful information about the Salvation Army. I didn't know all of that. Wow, so I'm sure that 2020 gave you some unique challenges over there at the Salvation Army. Tell us a little bit of how that affected the organization.
Well, for sure. I mean, but Christian social work is always full of obstacles. That's just part of the job. But we became more digital, I guess, as everyone did in 2020. The calls didn't stop from folks struggling with homelessness. In fact, they increased. I mean, folks felt kind of really abandoned out there at the beginning when everything shut down. So we were getting lots of calls and had to adapt. Had to learn how to do online applications and, telecommunication applications, Zoom classes, and streaming our worship services. So we've gotten really good at all of that. We're real proud of ourselves now.
Wow, so it actually sounds as if what was perceived as a challenge actually became an opportunity for your organization to actually grow it and just add on to the tools.
Absolutely, and further our outreach.
That's wonderful. So with that being said, what is Salvation Army looking to do in the future?
Well, we for sure want everyone to get healthy, and we would really like to be in person. I mean, that is ministry. We really want more of that. We are open for in person now, but of course have to be spaced and masked and all of the above. But for sure, we really want to reopen our doors, but we're going to continue our digital outreach. We're going to continue our streaming and our Zoom classes and so forth, because we for sure can reach more that way.
That is wonderful. That's wonderful. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like your audience to know about the Salvation Army here in Gwinnett?
You are always welcome at the Salvation Army. Our community center is on Sugarloaf Parkway, and we'd love to see you anytime.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Deborah Wingrove with Salvation Army.
I am honored to introduce our first keynote speaker of the day, Jennifer Rogers. Jennifer is a small-town country girl who grew up right here in Northwest Georgia. In her early 20s, due to a drug addiction, Jennifer was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison. But while in prison, Jennifer underwent a great personal transformation for the better. Now she is transforming the lives of incarcerated women and men all over the world. She is the CEO and founder of the National Association of Women's Prison Reform and Rise Up Media Group. She's also a prison reform expert. Her popular talks have inspired an array of organizations all over the United States. Jennifer has learned that the key to returning citizens achieving success is having access to life skills, sales training, and employment tailored to their individual needs. Inspiring and energizing audience with her engaging storytelling, Jennifer shares her knowledge with excitement and passion. She influences thousands of individuals each year with her innate ability to connect personally with audience members. Jennifer has taken the worst parts of herself and of her life and created a powerful way for convicted felons to start over and achieve the desires of their heart.
My name is Jennifer Rogers, and I am the founder of the National Association of Women's Prison Reform, Rise Up Media Group, and the Ruth Sanctuary. I'm so honored to be here today, and I hope that by telling you a little bit about my story and the things that I have went through, that I can inspire someone today to make the same changes that I have been able to make and overcome in my life. At 13 years old, my parents got divorced, and that left me in a very dark and lonely place in my life. I grew up in a small town in northwest Georgia. I wasn't overly exposed to very many things, so I lived a pretty sheltered life up to that point. At the age of 13, I found myself searching for love in any avenue that I could find it. And at first, it started out with boys. And so I started to desire to have relationships with boys to fill that void that I was feeling from the failure of my family. And then when boys no longer sufficed, the need that I had, eventually, at 17 years old, I was captain of my co-ed all-star cheerleading squad, and I was also Miss Armurchie High School. And a manager of a store that I worked for in the mall introduced me to methamphetamines. And the first time that I tried it, it scared me. But there was just something about it that I had to try again. And so the second time that I tried it again, I was addicted. And that road of addiction led me through very many dark paths, crime, heartbreak, the loss of everything. And, you know, my first arrest, I was actually 30 days from my senior graduation, and I had been up for weeks, and I was hiding my addiction because I had become very well at presenting who I was to the world on the outside, which was not who I was on the inside. So I would put these contact lenses in my eyes, and I would go to school every day, and I would present this smile on my face because that's who I wanted the world to see me as. But on the inside, I was desperate, and I was lost, and I was void of all emotion and feeling. And I fall asleep driving at the wheel, and the police officer, he comes and he knocks on my window. I can't get out of the car. I'm trapped in the car, and he asked me where I was going so early in the morning, and I couldn't remember. My mind is racing. Where am I going? Where am I going? So I said the best and first thing that I could come up with in that moment, well, I'm going to school. And he starts to write it down, and he looks at me, and he was like, "You're going to school on a Sunday?" And the moment that he said that, it snapped me out of this coma that I was somewhat in. And I was like, immediately I knew where I was going. I was actually going to the drug dealer's house to get my fix, because that's what I did. Anytime that I would come down, I would have to go and get high again. And so I was like, no, I'm actually going to wash my clothes for work. And I knew what I was doing that morning. And so they finally are able to get me out of the car, and I'm sitting in an ambulance. And while I'm in that ambulance, they're searching my car, and they find a piece of methamphetamines. So I end up getting arrested the first time. And I remember when I'm sitting in that jail cell, I'm literally 100 pounds soaking wet. I mean, my life is deteriorating, but I was always so self-conscious about my weight, and I wanted to be very attractive and be thin. And so I remember just crying myself to sleep in that cell. My entire life had flashed before my eyes, and I finally get a bond and a phone call, and I call my mom, "Can you come get me?" And she's like, "Where are you at?" And I was like, well, you know, what had happened was I was driving my car, I wrecked, I fell asleep, they found dope, it wasn't mine, can you come get me? So her and my dad show up at the jail together, something that I had not seen in a very long time since their divorce. And they're standing on the other side of that glass, and they're like, you know, you have a drug problem, you're a drug addict, and we're not getting you out unless you go to, you agree to go to Wynwood. And I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Wynwood. It used to be in Rome, Georgia, but it was like a place where they took crazy people. And I was like, I am not crazy, and I am not a drug addict. What is wrong with y'all? So I'm having this screaming fit, and they are holding their own and standing their ground, and the guard comes in and drags me by the arm, and he takes me back in the back. And I end up calling my dad, and I'm like, "Daddy, please come get me out. Like, I'll take a drug test, and if I fail the drug test, I'll go to Wynwood. So I had the plan, right? I think anytime you're an addict or you're living an adverse lifestyle, you always think that you're a little more clever than you really are. Like you've gotten so used at fooling, or so good at fooling everyone else, but you're really just fooling yourself. And so I had this plan. I was going to drink this drink. It was going to clean out my system, and I was going to, get clean, and I was going to pass the drug test so I could just go back to living my life as usual. Well, that didn't happen. They take me to the hospital. I failed the drug test. They come off my bond, and I end up getting bonded out. And I got high again one more time, and then I went home to my father's house. Well, not long after that, I end up getting pregnant with my daughter. So I have this child, and my life is just spiraling. I'm up and I'm down, and one moment I feel okay, and then the next moment I'm unsure of who I am. And so I have this baby, and when I had her and I held her for the first time, I remember making a promise that I would never go back to that life again because I was so overwhelmed with her love. But the problem with that was I never really healed. And so I ended up going back to my addiction. And once I went back to my addiction, I went to court on my first charge, and they drug tested me on the one time that I had to report for probation, and I failed it. So they revoked my probation. I had to do 60 days in county jail. It was a 2-for-1. I did 30. Well, after that, I get out. I moved to Washington State for a year with her father. We had gotten married. My life had completely turned around. I was clean for the first time. I was running an all-star cheer gym, something that I was very passionate about and I loved doing, but my marriage was miserably failing. And in the failure of my marriage, I came back to Georgia and I got high again for the first time, and I felt like I was missing out on the world. And so I packed up my daughter and I walked away from my marriage, and that started the spiral of about 4 to 5 years of me just killing myself every single day. And I went from working a normal job to working in a nightclub in Atlanta to becoming a drug dealer and selling drugs in Rome, Georgia every single day. And I ended up getting arrested again, and I lost custody of my daughter. And I remember in that time when I lost her, I felt like I had nothing left to live for. And I would go and see her. My mom had temporary custody of her, and I remember going to see her at night, and she would just hold my face with her little hands. She was almost 3 at the time, and she would say, "Mommy, I just want to go home with you." And that just killed me inside. And so I would leave from there, and I would go, and I would get so high that I wouldn't feel anything and I wouldn't remember anything. And my dad would say, "I'm praying for you." And I'm like, "Don't pray for me. Don't pray for me, because the God that I grew up believing in failed me at 13 years old. Do not pray for me. Save that for someone else." And then I would go home at night, and I would be by myself, and I would lay in this bed, and I would be so high that I couldn't sleep. And I would pray to this same God that I didn't want to save me. "I just need you to take me, because my life is not worth living anymore. I'm not good for anybody in this moment and place of where I'm at." I was just so lost in darkness that I had no sight of hope. And when I asked God to take me, I wanted Him to remove me from the world, from living. I didn't want a heartbeat anymore, but He had other plans for me. So instead of removing me from breathing, He removed me from the world, and I got a federal indictment. And once I got that federal indictment, it was for selling drugs. And I was in Floyd County Jail, and I was sitting in there, and I think about my 2nd or 3rd week in, and I had nothing left. I had nothing left but tears. I couldn't even speak out loud because I was just void of all words, and tears would just stream down my face every day because my life had no meaning anymore. And a woman came into that jail with a church one day, and she comes up to me, and I never had a conversation with her. She didn't know why I was there. She said, "Can I pray for you?" And I said yes. And she put her hand on me and she prayed for me. And once she got done, she looked me directly in my eyes and she said, "You will never go back to your addiction again." And in that moment, I could breathe again for the first time. The veil was lifted. I knew that I would never go back. So I run to the phone and I'm dialing. I'm like, Daddy, I am healed. Please come get me out. He's like, are you crazy? Like, we've heard this before. My mom's the same thing. We've watched you self-destruct over and over again. No, we're not getting you out. You need to sit in there. You've made a mess of your life. And so I stayed in there for 4 months. And during those 4 months, I got intentional about who I was and what I wanted and about getting clean. So finally, my mom ended up bonding me out, and I was out for almost a year. And during that year, I got involved in faith-based recovery groups up in Rome, Georgia. I spoke, I told my story, I was in counseling. I did all of the steps. But I still wasn't able to have contact with my daughter because I had lost full custody of her in my divorce. And I remember my sentencing time was coming around, and the judge in Georgia had ordered my ex-husband to come to Georgia with my daughter because I had filed a petition to be able to see her. Well, my sentencing date comes up on the same calendar date as that, so he rescheduled that hearing. And I knew that there was a chance that I would go to prison. But I prayed for one thing, and the one thing that I prayed for is I want to see my daughter. So I go to sentencing on my federal indictment, and my mom's up there, and she's crying, and she's a court reporter, and she's telling the judge she's not the same person that she was a year ago. Please don't send her to prison. I'm afraid of what it will do to her if you send her to prison. I see this every day. And the judge very matter-of-factly said, she may not be the same person that she was a year ago, but maybe she'll learn to have a little more respect for the law. The guidelines ask for 30 months. I'm going to round her 4 months up to 6, and she will serve 24 months in a federal prison. And in that moment, I felt nothing. I was numb. I heard my father and my mom sobbing in the background, and I walked out of that courthouse, and still I felt nothing. A couple of months went by, and I finally got my self-surrender letter, which would tell me where I was supposed to go. And I was supposed to go to a minimum security camp, and I ended up getting sentenced to a maximum security federal prison, which just so happened to be in the same state that my daughter lived in the same town. So when the judge found that out, he ordered my ex-husband to allow me to see my daughter supervised, so I got to see her before I self-surrendered into this maximum security federal prison. And the day that I self-surrendered, I did not see daylight until the day I left 2 years later. And I remember when I first got in there, I was angry. I was angry at God. I'm like, I've done the steps. I've done everything that they said I was supposed to do. I've done everything that you've asked. I've changed my life. Like, why am I here? He didn't answer. So I sat there and I started to read this book called The Captivity Series. And a woman by the name of Katie Souza wrote that book, and her story was very similar to mine. So while I'm reading this, I hear God speak to me. He says, you need to read the book of Isaiah. So I start to read this book, and he begins to speak to me, and I'm writing a book while I'm in prison. I'm intentional about what I want for my life and where I'm going, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I was called to prison ministry, and I knew that God would make a way. And so finally the date comes when I'm getting ready for my halfway house date. And I'm so excited. And so I go in there, and I'm talking to my counselor, and she's like, oh, by the way, we denied your halfway house time. I was like, why? Why would you do that? And she was like, oh, you have strong ties to the community. And I was like, strong ties? Like, I have no ties. I know you've read my file. I have burned every bridge that exists in my life. She's like, well, you have parents. So I'm in there now for an extra 6 weeks, and now I'm mad again because I'm like, what is the meaning of all of this? So the week before I am scheduled to go home, the chaplain had scheduled a visitor to come in for ministry. And so I sign up to go to the ministry, and I'm down there, and it ends up being Katie Souza. And she comes in, and they have a whole worship experience, and it was the best moment of my life. It was just confirmation that when I walked out of that place, I was walking out free. And then she came up to me at the end of her service, and she said, God spoke to me about you. You will never be back here, and your life is going to take off, and one day you will get your daughter back, and she will never remember a day that you lost with her. So I get out, and I get a job with this national advertising company. 2 weeks later, 6 months later, I'm traveling the country, opening up offices for this company, and I excelled very quickly there, and then I fight custody of my daughter, and I get her back. And over the course of that time, I knew that there was something greater, something bigger that God had called me to do. And so while I am working in Atlanta, I ended up moving on to a fintech company. I come up with the idea of the National Association of Women's Prison Reform, and it is a company that hires women returning from incarceration, and we pay a base salary and full benefits and commission, and I walk women through the process of how to get back on their feet and find hope and create a life worth living. And from that came Rise Up Media Group, and from that came our newest venture, which is the Ruth Sanctuary, and it is transitional housing that we are in the process of building out. So anywhere that you're at in your life, no matter where you've been, you have the power within you to create something so significant and so good that you can leave your mark on the world and make true change. And if you don't have a story like mine, but you have the ability to get involved and to help organizations like mine and the Greater Gwinnett Reentry Alliance, I strongly encourage you to get involved, do your part, and help us make a true change for people that are just like me and you that have lost their way and just need someone to put their hand out and help them up. So I am Jennifer Rogers, and I hope that you have been inspired by this talk today. And if you would like to get involved, please reach out to us at the National Association of Women's Prison Reform. Thank you.
I'm here with Deputy Joey Stafford. She's one of our providers here, and I just want to say she's also a friend of mine. How you doing, Joey?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about who you are, and then also just tell us about the work that you're doing.
Okay. Again, I'm Deputy Joey Stafford. I work with the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office, and I'm part of a specific unit called GRIP, or Gwinnett Reentry Intervention Program. And I have been with the program for about 3 years now. And GRIP is a resource program. We are a liaison between incarcerated individuals who are soon going to be returning citizens. And we try and link them to whatever resources that they may possibly need to be successful in their release and their return, such as rehab facilities or mental health treatment, transitional housing. We do a lot of work with one of your other guests here today, Mr. Lee Robbins, in Vital Signs. But that's our biggest goal, is to reduce the recidivism in Gwinnett County and also assist with the homeless situation in Gwinnett County.
That's wonderful. And I have a special place in my heart for GRIP because I also work alongside of them. Well, that was before the close of us coming in person into the jail. Wonderful, wonderful program. So tell me how 2020 affected the work that you were doing at the jail with GRIP.
Oh, goodness. It closed a lot of our resources. A lot of the homeless shelters, of course, could not have any new intakes. Rehabilitation centers could not have any new admissions. So it really had a negative effect on us being able to assist our returning citizens. And the volunteers that we had that would come into the Gwinnett County Jail for groups such as our substance abuse or trauma, PTSD, the things that we are offering. We have 3 therapeutic communities within our jail, and we could no longer have the facilitators of those groups come in. So things are slowly starting to open back up. We were able to establish virtual groups so that we wouldn't have to cut out on all of our therapeutic groups. But we still have not opened back up to the in-person, and that really has a much greater impact on the inmates that are still within the facility. They just work so much better with the in-person contact than over Zoom. But Zoom is better than nothing.
That's understandable. So, if you could ideally have anything that you would like to happen with GRIP going forward, what would you say that would be?
More of a collaboration within the resources. We have a lot of resources, but everybody seems to be individual. They're not working as well with each other to offer, greater services and more services. Ideally, that's what I feel would be a better success within the program, was just to have more collaboration between everybody.
All right, that's awesome. Any last things you would like for us to know about GRIP?
GRIP is growing by leaps and bounds, and it's going to take a part. Everybody has to play their part for it to be successful, and we are just looking forward to seeing what the future holds for GRIP and Gwinnett County and our returning citizens.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Deputy Joy Stafford with GRIP.
My name is Jessica Gambino, and I'm here to tell my second chances testimony. I grew up in an unconventional household. Domestic violence and drug abuse were normal, as well as toxic behaviors. The question is, who was I before my second chance? And when I think back to that, that defined who I was. I went from relationship to relationship. They were just toxic, and I was just lost. I was broken. I didn't really fit in anywhere. In 2012, my son was abused by his father, and that really broke me. I didn't know how to cope with the pain. Somebody I was trying to make my forever family with it was the ultimate betrayal. From that moment, I turned down a dark road. I started using and abusing drugs, and I ended up homeless and a junkie. I went down that dark road. I was in and out of recovery for a long time. And in 2015, I started seeking, I was tired of that life. I started seeking sobriety. I just knew that I wanted better for my life. I went into a program, Inspire Outreach, and really learned how to be back in society. They taught me the basic skills that I had lost in being homeless and living that kind of life. That wasn't the end of the journey, but in 2017, I would say I started going to 12 Stone Church, and that is really when things changed for me. Just learning who I was, who my identity is in Christ. I had been invited to church, and I never really went. I know when I was on the streets, I remember scripture, and it was, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. And I had spent so many years with pain as my identity. But coming to church and finding out my true identity, it changed everything for me. So right now I'm in a discipleship program. I'm in the transformation phase, and I am learning to walk through this Christian life, and I'll turn around and use it to help women. I have a mentor from my church, and she's actually starting a nonprofit organization, it's on the horizon. I'm going to be a part of. It's women discipling other women. I'm really excited to do that. I've already began to lead small groups and do things such as that, so where I can take what I've learned and help other women, other people that are, looking for their second chance. My name is Jessica Gambino, and I turned my second chance into a better chance.
And now we come to a very special point in our program. Last year, the GGRA instituted a new award to recognize the efforts and accomplishments of the returning citizens of our community. The award is named in honor of former Governor Nathan Deal, based on the outstanding work that he did reaching across party lines to provide second chances to returning citizens. Our first nominee is Amy Ard, founder of Motherhood Beyond Bars, which provides services and hope for women who are pregnant, in jail, and needing a better chance for their children. Next, we have Pamela Hillman, founder of Life Changers Legacy, a one-on-one spiritual mentoring program for incarcerated individuals. She used her own transformation while in prison as inspiration to reach out to others in need. She has also rolled out secondary methods of reentry services to set up women and men on a path of success as they re-enter society. Our third nominee is David Berger of Bridge the Gap Ministries. He has served people at this courthouse ministry for over 20 years, praying with and serving families on the front end of the legal process. Our final nominee is Mirabin Fromm. Ms. Fromm was arrested here in Gwinnett for prostitution, and it was discovered that she herself was a victim of sex trafficking. After going through the program at Out of Darkness here in Atlanta and completing her recovery at Grand Recovery, she now helps others suffering from addiction and sex trafficking as a resident of We Are Living Proof Ministry. Here with us today, we have Russell Gray, founding member of GGRA, to present the Second Chance Award.
It is now my distinct honor to present this year's Second Chance Award, sponsored by the Greater Gwinnett Reentry Alliance, to Pamela Hillman of Life Changers Legacy.
Thank you so much, and I'm so grateful. Thank you, everybody at GGRA, and I just want to say, as far as the women and the men in prison, that if we want to do this restorative justice from the outside, we really have to start from the inside. And that's what we do at Life Changers Legacy. We have a mentoring program. We actually have a 4-phase workbook curriculum. It's research evaluated, best practices, and it's infused with the Word of God. And He is who healed me. I was incarcerated in 2010 for 18 months. I was addicted to cocaine, alcohol, pretty much anything that I could get for 35 years. And the Lord touched me in prison, and that's what we want to do, is actually touch them so they will be changed and have a better chance when they come out. And we have a halfway house that we're opening. We also have a Uniquely You Resource Center in Cumming, Georgia, that will offer classes. We offer all sorts of health and wellness, and we invite you to look at lifechangerslegacy.org and at the Uniquely You tab and learn more about that, get engaged with that. And excuse my voice. We thank you all for being a part of the Greater Gwinnett Reentry Alliance as well. And we thank you for partnering with them, because we reach more people when you partner, and we thank you for that. And I just want to tell you also about the COVID relief grant that we did in December. We were able to help 50 individuals, actually we were able to help so many individuals with $50,000 worth of relief funding from Gwinnett County. And we also, Life Changers Legacy also has another grant that it's a reimbursement grant. So we have to actually help the individuals and they reimburse the money to us. But for those that are in need, we're offering this again. If you're behind on your rent, you're behind on your utilities, then we can help you with that. And you can get in touch with Greater Gwinnett Reentry Alliance for more information, or you can contact Life Changers Legacy for that as well, lifechangerslegacy.org. And we just thank you so much for partnering with us. If we don't have people like you that have a heart's compassion to reach back to the lost and forgotten, they will repeat once they come out. So we have to change their mindsets while they're in and walk alongside them. This mentoring program is done online through email and video visit. You can invest an hour of your time a week and change a life. Walk alongside them till they come out. Then we walk alongside when they get out. We offer all sorts of things, but without your help, we can't do it. So we do thank you for that. And again, thank you for partnering with GGRA. God bless.
We're here today with one of our partners, Lee Robbins. Lee, how you doing?
Doing well, Lorenzo. Good to be with you.
Good to see you as well.
Absolutely.
So, Lee, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're here to talk about today.
Well, Lorenzo, I am the founder of Tackle the Shackles and excited about what's happening with Tackle the Shackles because we're connecting with NFL football players all over the country. And our desire is to connect with other providers, reentry providers throughout the country so we can all come together and be unified. Many hands make lighter work.
Wow, that's wonderful. And I know that those that are hearing this, as well as I have really are gaining an interest into what is going to go on with Tackle the Shackles in the future. So tell us, Lee, in 2019, 2020, in the midst of COVID-19, how did that affect you in the efforts that you're trying to do now?
Well, it was a positive thing and a negative thing. Let's start with the negative. You know, obviously all the things that many people have gone through the COVID, the prisons shut down and we were not able to go in. So it forced us to really be more creative and literally gave us more time to think about how can we help these returning citizens. And so as I was watching all the social issues going on TV where we had NFL football players somewhat reluctant to take a knee because they did not want to offend people and take a knee, but at the same time, they wanted to be involved with social justice. And so my heart went out to them. And so I decided, well, let me create Tackle the Shackles for them so they can get off their knees and roll up their sleeves and get involved. So I thought, now they got great star power. They got great influence. They have a way in bringing people together. And so I started recruiting, alumni, NFL alumni. And so we started Tackle the Shackles for that purpose of, helping people come together, helping not only here in Georgia, but throughout the United States to come together, to bring about awareness, to bring about education, to also bring about financial support, because these players, owners, and all that around the NFL, they have the means to be able to empower providers just like yourself and GGRA.
Awesome, that's wonderful. So we heard the premise of what Tackle the Shackles is. We heard about some of the pitfalls that you had to navigate through. Mm-hmm. So going forward, what is the vision that you have for Tackle the Shackles?
Well, when we look at the statistics, when you got 2.2 million people that are incarcerated in the United States, that's more people incarcerated throughout, the whole world put together. When I think about also 1 out of 4 individuals who are in foster care, they end up going to prison. When I think about 128 out of 128 kids, their parents are in prison. There's a 70% chance that they will go to prison. So it becomes generational. And I thought that this would really got my heart about why I should start Tackle the Shackles is because of our military. 10% of those individuals are in prison right now, mostly because of PTSD, right? And only 1% of us serve in the military. So they're protecting our freedom, but we are incarcerating them because they were protecting us. So Tackle the Shackles' vision was to lead with the veterans, because everybody can connect with the veterans and then connect also with the NFL football players. And that has been a great chemistry for change. And it literally, people are catching on to Tackle the Shackles. I don't even have to do a lot of explaining. It's kind of organic how it's catching on, and people want to get involved. So a lot of owners, NFL football team owners, as well as coaches and as well as players, want to take the brand of Tackle the Shackles to the next level for the purpose of reducing prison recidivism.
Wonderful, wonderful. Wow. So we're about to wrap up this interview and wonderful conversation with you. Is it something that you want our viewing audience to know?
Well, this is really prison reform and social justice and reducing prison recidivism is really a national issue. And we all got to get involved. It takes a village to reduce prison recidivism. And so we've been doing it here in Georgia very well. Governor Deal, that's his legacy that he left behind in starting the initiative that led to the First Step Act. I so happened to was part of that in working with the state. And that has become something that is on a national level. It's a national problem. So what I really want people out there to know and understand, the people who are coming out of prison, they don't just need a second chance. They need a better chance because they never had a first chance. And so, and it's a community effort, community change, because it's a ripple effect that takes place in our community. It's a financial, a lot of people don't realize that when we incarcerate people, we're paying for it. It's coming out of our tax dollars. So, and 95% of the people that's coming out are going to come out. They need housing, jobs, transportation, and that's why we've been a part of creating those entities. And so we want the community to be a part of this. Indirectly, you know what we're going to do? We're going to reduce crime. Indirectly, we're going to reduce also victims. A lot of times we don't think about victims, but the victims are being victimized by those who come out of prison because they don't have better second chances. So I'm excited about being a part of Tackle the Shackles. The tackles are the solutions. The shackles are the problems. And so we want to make sure that we be a part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Wow, thank you so much just for sharing all that wonderful information. Lee Robbins, founder of Tackle the Shackles.
Our next keynote speaker is Todd Dubose. As CEO of Returning Citizens magazine, Mr. Dubose assists the justice involved inside and outside prisons around the U.S. for reentry resources. His digital monthly magazine has a daily audience of over 450,000 individuals. Additionally, Mr. Dubose is the COO of reentryinstitute.com, an educational learning management system custom designed for the post-release population. Courses on the learning management system address the gap experienced by the justice-involved community, not having access to academic online classes once released from prison. Please welcome with me, Mr. Dubose.
Hi, I'm Todd Dubose, CEO of Returning Citizens magazine. We have all types of content floating around nowadays with social media. But when we talk about magazines, there's a plethora of magazines available. You've got National Geographic, magazines about cats, magazines about dogs, Time magazine, and the list goes on. We have to have content. We live for content. But what I noticed, we didn't have a magazine for the justice-involved community. I couldn't find a magazine on the coffee table that talked about best practices as it relates to returning citizens. No magazines at the doctor's office. No magazines in waiting rooms anywhere in regards to returning citizens. Let's unpack what the Returning Citizens magazine is. The magazine is about transportation. We have individuals that get released every day, but a lot of them don't have transportation. So we talk about that. We ask them to come up with a plan so that when a loved one is ready to pick them up, they know it's going to be that individual, versus coming out the gate, standing on the sidewalk, not knowing what to do or where to go. The magazine is really a challenge. It's a piece of work where we want to help that individual come up with a plan. As just mentioned, individuals are released all the time, but they don't have a plan. They need to find out ahead of time that they're going to stay with their aunt or their uncle or their grandmother. But they need to do that ahead of time because, as we know, individuals pass on. So your plan in regards to staying with your grandmother, you can't do it now. Your grandmother's gone. So what's your plan B? In each issue, we constantly challenge them. We constantly say, what's your plan in this area? What's your plan in that area? I mentioned transportation. Then we've got clothing. Hey, they need clothing when they get out. They need pants, shorts, undergarments, socks. They need all of that because remember, they're starting over. So we're that organization, we're that magazine that's going to tell them you can go to certain Goodwill stores and they'll give you a coupon for a certain dollar amount and you just go in the store and pick out clothes. Pick out clothes that are going to help you to get a new start, a new beginning. The magazine also talks about veterans. Now, veterans is probably the smallest group in jails and prisons, but they're there nonetheless. So when they get involved and they're arrested and charged and sent to a correctional facility, let's just take this example. We have a veteran that's a disabled veteran. So this individual is compensated every month from the Department of Veteran Affairs in connection with his or her disability. So they're incarcerated, and let's say the person was getting 80% disability every month. Well, once you're incarcerated, that goes down to 10%. So now you're probably asking yourself, well, Todd, what happens to the other 70%? Well, I'm glad you asked. It can stay where it is and nothing happens, but let's just say that disabled veteran is married. Our magazine will tell them what they need to do, the forms that they need to fill out, so that the spouse can get that 70% until the other person is released. Those are the types of things that we talk about in the magazine. Another example, we have ports all over the country. They bring in goods from China. They have these big cargo containers that they put on these ships. And once these ships arrive, they have to be unloaded. A container will come down and rest on a truck bed and it goes, it's gone. But in order to work at a port, you have to be cleared. Our magazine talks about that. Our magazine talks about the fact that there is a TWIC card that you get from the Department of Transportation that gives you access to the port so that you can do your job. Furthermore, if you've been incarcerated, it does not exclude you from being cleared as a CDL driver delivering those containers where they need to go. We also focus on women. Women are not, it surprises me that women don't get the coverage. They're not made aware of the benefits that are available to them. We cover those as well. We even have an issue dedicated to resources for women. When I think about the magazine, I think about someone that's reading a monthly digital magazine on their tablet. We are very happy that these individuals, when they wake up and they come about and go and check out their tablet, they'll read our magazine just like you would sit down and read a newspaper. We really are happy that they do that. We have 450,000 tablets that our magazine resides on. We have an archive of magazines going back to 2018. Now, a lot of those resources, even though we're talking 2018, for the most part, is still going to be relevant. You still have to have a plan. You're still looking for a job. You're looking to reunite with your family. That's a big deal. So when individuals take the time and look at all of the issues, they're ready. They have a plan. They understand what they're up against. And they know that when they get out and they meet up with their family, okay, we talked about all these things during our visits. Were you able to find someone that will be willing to interview someone formerly incarcerated? So if you look at the magazine, you've got the family on the outside, and you've got the confined individual looking at the magazine on the tablet. What happens, it allows them to work together as a team, and they'll read and take in those resources just like their loved one that's incarcerated. But they can help them so much more if they know what to do, if they know what services are available. It's when it comes together and when they do visitation and get a chance to talk on the phone, yeah, they're talking about coming home and I miss you, but they're also talking about, hey, did you see in the June issue where it talked about X, Y, and Z? Yeah, I saw that. Can you help me with that? Can you help, get me ready so that when I get out, we'll already have that done. We talk about jobs. We talk about employers that are second chance friendly, that will hire formerly incarcerated. And the beauty behind that is when we're able to share who those employers are, when they go to interview, they're holding their heads up high. They're not nervous. They're not worrying about talking about their past because that employer already knows that he or she has a past. They just want to talk about your qualifications to see if you're going to be a good fit for the job. So our magazine covers the confined population on the inside. But what we learned over time is that when individuals are released, there's a gap. While they're incarcerated, they're exposed and they can use a learning management system where they can take courses, music, movies, just all types of information. But once they leave the facility, they no longer have access to that. So once we realized there was a gap, we took our mission to the next level. We decided to create a learning management system for the formerly incarcerated to continue taking classes, to learn about best practices when engaging your parole officer. We talk about, there's just a plethora of courses. Another example is, how do you go about getting your Social Security card? Well, we have a course on that. It talks about that. How do you go about getting your driver's license? We have a course for that. How do you apply for Medicare/Medicaid? We have a course on that. And it just goes on and on and on. And by them having access to over 115 video-based courses, they're able to get prepared and find out what's the latest and greatest. You know, when you look at an individual that's been incarcerated, say, 15 years, there's a good chance they don't know anything about social media. They don't know about Instagram. They don't know about Facebook. They don't know about LinkedIn. We have those courses on our LMS so they can learn about LinkedIn, learn about Instagram, learn about Facebook. Because when they're released, this becomes part of their world. And if they don't embrace it, it's going to really be complicated with the way that they communicate. When you think about a learning management system, you think about courses that you can take. The nice thing about the learning management system that we stood up is courses can be taken remotely. This tool was built to work alongside of the tools that help individuals once they're released. Instead of them taking all the time to talk about the Social Security card, the ID, Medicare, Medicaid, when that individual is there, they can actually look at those courses while they're there. So the LMS exists to be an additional tool alongside what they're currently used. So I just like to emphasize as I close, our magazine helps on the inside. We have an LMS that helps individuals on the outside. So I think what we do is considered, in my opinion, a 360-degree program. Thank you for your time.
At this point in our program, we would like to acknowledge each of our reentry partners for the outstanding work that they do serving the returning citizens in our community. This year's partners are Navigate Recovery, Ridgeview Institute Monroe, Voice Nation, Life Changers Legacy, Bridge the Gap Ministries, Inspire Outreach, Life Empowerment Enterprises, Assimilate, Viewpoint Health, and Hearts to Nourish Hope. Their collective work this year, despite the struggles through the pandemic, have continued to benefit and enrich the lives of returning citizens across this diverse county. One of those partners is Navigate Recovery, who is so kind to offer us their facility to record this year's symposium. So here with us today, representing Navigate Recovery, is my good friend and co-founder, Barley Barge.
Thank you, Scott. Yes, well, we're so glad to have GGRA here with us today because they have a special place in our hearts, because so many of the people that we serve through addiction recovery are the same people they serve. We know that nearly 80% of the people incarcerated are there because of offenses they committed as a result of substance misuse and addiction. And that's why this partnership is so important to us and the Gwinnett community. So we're honored to have you here today, Scott, and we're honored to be a part of this partnership.
The great work of the GGRA could not happen without the support of our members across the community. And we want to invite you to take a next step in partnership by following us across social media at Gwinnett Reentry. Also coming to our website at GwinnettReentry.org, where we have information for you about ways you can partner with us financially, opportunities to sign up for news and info, and also the opportunity to join us at our monthly meetings where you can go deeper in understanding the issues and how you can help. We're so honored that you would be here with us today, and we look forward not only to seeing you in the days ahead more connected to the GGRA, but also certainly next year at our 2022 Better Chances Symposium.